Greetings, marketing strategy scholars, and welcome back to the ongoing video lecture series for marketing strategy. This exciting installment is Chapter 7, Differentiation and Brand Positioning. Control yourself. I know you're excited, but maintain your concentration throughout the exhibit. So what is positioning? As I've said, but if you've had me before, you know that I do talk about positioning quite a bit, no matter the class, just about. Remember this, it's how your product is perceived in the customer's mind. Okay? That's the best way to remember it, I've found. And so keep that in mind as we talk about positioning over the rest of this presentation, and of course we'll cover some other stuff too. But so here's a slide of some critical words and why they matter when we talk about positioning. Distinct. Why would anybody choose your product? Is it different? And different in a good way, that it offers something that the competing product does not. If it's not different than what they're buying and using now, why would they buy it? So let's say it has some differences, the product, the good or service. Are they valued by the customer? You may think they're great, but if the customer doesn't value the differences, then it doesn't make any, it's not going to have any effect on them. I have an example, clear colored colas. Failed. People weren't interested in drinking a clear orange soda. If it's going to taste like an orange, they want it to look like an orange. Physical. Must walk the walk. It's tough to, if you say it's different, then it needs to be. If you say it's better, it needs to be. It's tough to market Me Too products. I mean, when the fidget spinner came out, then as soon as people, these knockoff companies could, they bought them and, created their own. They were at every quick stop. But that only lasts a little while, and most people would rather have the original than a Me Too. Saying, oh, this is just as good as an Apple Watch. That's tough. How the customer perceives, the perceptual bullet is what I'm on. If they don't perceive there's a difference, then it doesn't matter. In my business career, I spent quite a bit of time in the lighting business, and General Electric, who was a big dog in those days in the lighting business, used to always say, if you use GE, yeah, it costs you more, but it's better. They're better than Sylvania and Philips. But to my customers, a light bulb's a light bulb. And I used to explain that to them all the time. A customer doesn't perceive a GE light bulb different than a Philips or a Sylvania or some knockoff brand from Korea or wherever, Mexico, wherever it's coming from. So if they don't perceive the difference, then it doesn't matter. If they do perceive a difference, it does matter. And the last point, which I've stated earlier, it's what the customer perceives, not what you perceive as the marketer. You say, well, there is a difference. And the customer goes, I don't see it. Then it's not there. So, positioning. How should a business position its product so that customers in the target market perceive in their own minds the offering as providing the benefits they seek? Because that gives you an advantage over your competitors if the customer perceives that it's different. So think about why consumers choose what they buy. I'll boil it down this slide to two reasons. What they choose is better than what they were using. this lawnmower is better than this other one because it does this and that one doesn't do that. Or what they choose is similar to them. It's about exactly the same, but it's less expensive. Those are the essential things that consumers are thinking about when they decide to make a purchase. All right. So differentiation is why people buy. Oftentimes, that what they choose is different from the others in the decision set that they have formed, even if it's not really, but in their mind it is, because it's easier to use or easier to start or easier to carry around or whatever. So what marketers are looking to do, especially if you think about detergent or some sort of category that has a lot of different brands in it that are, you know, pretty similar. They want to find the differences, position their goods that way to get a competitive advantage. So, brand positioning. You want to I put in there, identify determinate attributes that your good or service that you can use to market your good or service. There's a descriptive list in the textbook on page 170, but here they are in a more brief form. So what are some common bases that brands will use? So features. The first two are features and benefits. Okay. So features are often used in physical product positioning, and benefits directly related to the product. So if I was to ask you, just think of yourself just as a consumer. Do you typically purchase because of the features of a product or the benefits, what it will do for you? Well, I can tell you this. The typical consumer generally purchases off of benefits. There may be a time or two, let's say that you're looking for specific computer hardware on a computer because of something you want to do. So you may be interested in what kind of video card it has, or, you know, or sound card it has, or whatever it is. But typically, people want to know, what will it do for me? Most people, if they have a smartphone, most people do have a smartphone, they probably, if they're like me, they use probably 10-15% of all of the things it will do. Okay. It'll do a lot more than that. But, you know, I'm not going to buy a phone because it tells, you know, it gives me the types of titanium screws that are in it and the metal alloy makeup of the circuit board and all. I just want to know, you know, what'll it do? Can I text, get on Twitter, get on the internet, make phone calls, watch Netflix, whatever it is, those benefits. So you want to concentrate on those. We'll talk about that again in a minute. Parentage. If you have a good brand, then you might use that brand across all of your products. Sony believes, and they do, through research, that they have a quality name. People think Sony is a quality product. So whatever Sony makes, they put it on there. From cameras to, you know, Blu-ray players to televisions to computers. Right, that could be a determinant attribute for somebody. Well, if it's Sony, it's got to be good. Manufacturing process. I heard a subscription razor blade company, I believe it may have been Harry's. I heard an ad the other day where they say that, you know, they were, when they decided to go and, you know, to make an affordable solid razor, they bought a German razor blade factory. And why did they say that? Well, the perception is that Germans are great at high quality manufacturing. They didn't say they bought a Toledo, Ohio, you know, blade factory, even though it could be just as good, but they said German because they wanted that that to get into your mind and go, oh, a German blade company. Well, that's obviously a good blade. So that might be a determinant attribute. Or maybe you're really into zero waste and green movement. So there's no waste in the manufacturing process, and maybe that's a determinant attribute for you. Ingredients. I think you're looking at a food can. If you're buying a can of beans, you'd like the first ingredient to be beans, not sodium benzoate, flamanitol. I just made that up. That could be a determinant attribute to you that it's organic cotton or whatever it is. Endorsements, either expert or via emulation. Maybe somebody that you aspire to be in a group that they're in, or whatever, is wearing certain kind of shoes, then maybe that's the determinant attribute for it. Or because Tom Selleck is advertising the reverse mortgage, you go, I think I'll give that reverse mortgage a shot. Or a doctor who's an expert in immunology says you should take this vaccine, and you go, well, okay, he or she's always been an expert and they're endorsed, and I think I'll do it. Comparisons, you see that a lot. People comparing their product to another. What's one I just saw recently? It was Xfinity comparing themselves to AT&T. And you see the AT&T commercials where they have the guy that's the slow internet speed, and he's like a bad roommate living with him, whatever. That's very common. Or Kroger comparing their prices to Publix, whatever. Pro environment, that goes back into the ingredients I use as an example. Subaru advertises their plant in Indiana. I think that they, something like, in a whole year, they might put, 100 pounds of waste in a landfill, but they reuse everything else, boxes and screws, and melt them down, all kinds of stuff. And that could be determinant for you. You may not care. You just want the cheapest thing, no matter how much they pollute. But, it does matter, especially in this era, corporate social responsibility. And then, of course, price and quality. That always affects. And the less money you have, the more price sensitive you are. Or the more important the item is, you might not want to buy the cheapest smoke detector. You might want the best one, so you don't burn up in the middle of the night. So those are some common bases that brands use for, determinate attributes to try to attract customers. How many do you use when you're, advertising or whatever? Not every one of those, maybe just one or two. Keep it simple. It plays a major role, but if you use too many, then it becomes confusing. And oftentimes when consumers get confused, there is inaction. They just don't do anything because they're confused. So figure out which is the most important and concentrate on those, especially if you think they're comparing yours to one other in a consideration set. See what they're using, and you want to choose ones that beat that compete with that. All right. So we want to try to gain a distinct position, right? We would prefer that there already not be a big horse in the business. We would like for it not to be dominated already. Although that doesn't stop people. I mean, there are, dominant automobiles and dominant computers and phones and everything. You can get a profitable position in a market, maybe just concentrate on a niche part of that market, or something out in the long tail of that market. But you want to, when you're doing that, you want to concentrate on what attribute is most prized by members. Is it, Say if it's a car, is it a long, inclusive warranty? Is that something that motivates them? Think of it this way. If you pulled into a motel, there's 2 motels there, and your motel says, oh, we have cable and air conditioning. Are those attributes that are prized by people looking for a motel room? Well, yes, but those are common. Everybody's going to have those. Advertising, that's like advertising, hey, we pay the minimum wage. Okay. You have to do that by law. That might not be an attribute that differentiates you from the next, or differentiates one company from the next. So you want to concentrate on ones that do. So we're going to talk about positioning statements and value propositions. They're similar and yet different. Okay. What you're looking to do is, I won't read this slide to you, but match the preferences of a market, reflect the current and future attractiveness of the target market, and strengths and weaknesses of your competitors. Okay, that's just kind of an intro to what we're going to talk about. So let's say we're running a firm, we're running the marketing for a firm. So we're going to we're going to develop a positioning statement for products in our line and a value proposition. Okay. Each of them, we want to reflect the USP of the product. We are trying to locate and communicate a unique selling proposition, unique being one of a kind. Now that's difficult because very few things in life are one of a kind. But if you can get close to that, it's going to be very beneficial. So you can see the positioning statement identifies a target market and states unique benefits, whereas a value proposition, similar, but has some information about pricing relative to your competitors. So let's talk about these 2 approaches a little more in depth. I hope everybody's familiar with the Volvo car brand. They've spent decades advertising how safe they are. So if we're going to talk about features and benefits again, but if you remember what I said a couple slides ago, safety would be a benefit. The features that make the car safe, the airbags and the inflators and the strength of the steel and all those things, there might be some car engineers buying a car who's interested in all that. Most people don't know that much about that. They just want to know, is it safe? Because I want a safe car, for my family to be in. Just an example. So for upscale American families, let me go to this 3rd bullet first. This is a generic format that you can use for your company, your company in the future, your employer, whatever. For what target market, brand is the product category that offers this benefit. Okay, so the Volvo one that's at the top of the slide, let's insert that. So it says for upscale American families. That's letting us know that it's not going to be the cheapest on the market, and they're fine with that. So for upscale American families, Volvo is the family automobile, right? It's not the convertible Formula One racing car that offers maximum safety. That'd be a positioning statement for Volvo in North America. When you look at this on D2L, this Domino's 85 is a link to an ad from Domino's from 1985. And you can see how when they first started how they were positioning Domino's. One call does it all, which of course they wouldn't use now because most people just use an app to order a pizza. And we'll talk about Domino's a little bit more, I think, in an upcoming slide. So that's an example of a positioning statement. Here's a value proposition. Target market, upscale American families. Benefits offered, safety. Now we're going to have a price component. A 20% premium to domestic family cars. That's probably a little bit low, but close. So I'll give you another generic format for value propositions. We're going to talk about the target market, the benefits offered, sometimes what's not offered, because maybe somebody offers something that's not valued anymore, so they don't have that. And then the relative price. Okay, that is the composition of a value proposition. So let's talk about positioning statements. Some main points. Who are they written for? An internal audience. Okay, they're written for, our company is ABC Incorporated. That's who they're written for. So marketing decision makers and ad agencies. We're not going to put them might not put them in a newspaper ad, let's say, or a television ad. What sort of language? Plain prose. Let somebody else, you just want to convey to them, this is the way we want to position the product, and let the creatives come up with the ads for it. Based on what you've said, how you've said that the company wants to position the good or service. And coming back to features and benefits. On which should they focus? Benefits. Because that's why people buy. They buy Volvos because they're safe. People have rated them safe. They've been around a long time. They're safe. Not because of the brand, size, density, or inflation ratio of the side door airbags. Okay, that's a feature, not a benefit. Keep it simple. People want to know what they're going to get out of it. Okay? So positioning statements are value propositions either. How many attributes, should you anchor them with? One, maybe two, a couple. Again, if you use too many, you confuse people about what the product really offers. And like I say, when consumers get confused, oftentimes they don't act at all. You want to be clear and simple. So some examples. Volvo, safety. Volvo could say all kinds of stuff, what the history of the company and all the engineering that goes into it and blah, blah, blah. But they focus on one, safe. They don't say, oh, it's the best looking car on the road. They don't care. They're just telling you it's safe. Miller Lite, tastes great, less filling. That's two attributes. That was the original ad program, and they still use it. If you watch that Domino's ad from a couple slides earlier, they originally started out with fast delivery. Okay, that was their attribute. You didn't have to go to the local pizza parlor, and they were faster than local pizza parlor. Originally, it was 30 minutes or less, or you got it for free. Until they had some drivers have accidents while trying to hustle, pizzas to customers, and they changed it. They changed the 30-minute promise, and they changed it to hot delivery. And now it's even different still, and they've expanded their offerings beyond pizza, as everybody knows. Waffle House. Everybody's ridden by a Waffle House. Has anybody ever noticed some of the signage the Waffle House has inside the store? Good food fast. They used to use that almost exclusively. Now they use some other things, but it's good food. It's fast. It's not the best food. It's not immediate. It's not already cooked, but it's good food, and we cook it fast. Okay, so just a couple is where you want to concentrate, not too many. And like I said before, our ultimate goal as marketers is to create a unique selling proposition that's different than others that are already in the market or may get into the market. If we're, if we're the first ones in, we're pioneers. But if we're already in the market, then we want to try to create something, a unique selling proposition that we have that not everybody else has. And again, the generic format for position statements is below. It's the same that I mentioned earlier. So what's our end goal? If you remember from principles of marketing, I probably don't have any accounting principles 1 and 2. We probably don't have any accounting majors listening to this, but the accounting equations: assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. So we've got $1 million in assets equals our liabilities, which are $500,000, let's say, and that means our owner's equity is $500,000. That's what it's worth. It's what the brand is worth, or the business is worth, or however you're keeping your books, by product or division or the whole company. It's the value created by establishing customer preference for your brand. Now, brands are in and of themselves are worth money. If we wanted to buy Target, then we would say, okay, your inventory is worth this, and your store's worth this, and we add all that up, and we go, okay, that's X amount. And then they would, of course, reasonably say, yeah, but you're getting the Target logo that everybody knows, and it has it's a symbol of quality and goods, wide swath of goods, and everybody knows it. You don't have to explain what it is, and that's got to be worth something, right? And they would be right. It's worth something. If ABC Tires buys Goodyear Tire and Rubber, then they've got logos and brands and things that's worth something, that the company has managed and grown and created value in that name. So that's our ultimate goal of positioning, is to increase your brand equity. So we'll just end up this way. In 2015, the most valuable U.S. brands, according to this company, which I'll show you the link later, it's in the headline of the next one. But we had Apple, Google, Microsoft. This is the top 9. I'm just going to talk about the top 3: Apple, Google, and Microsoft in 2015. I want you to think about for a minute. In 2021, do you think any of those fell out, or do you think they're still in that position, 1, 2, and 3? Or has another brand between 2015 and 2021 managed to work their way into that top 3 of Apple, Google, and Microsoft? Can you think of one that might be missing in that top 3? You can look at these others. Maybe these moved up, maybe these moved down. And you can look at a full list, link on the next slide. So, in 2021, we got Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon has moved up into the number 2 position. Verizon, if we look at the previous slide, Verizon was number 4 in 5, excuse me. That makes no sense. Why do they have that? 5 and 5. That's squirrely. Anyway, they're down here now. Number 9. Amazon at number 2. I see Facebook in there. Walmart's still in there. And we've got WeChat, which is, this is international. Our first one was US, is international. So you see the flag. So that's a Chinese company. But anyway, you can see it's kind of steady, but there are changes. But that's the ultimate goal of positioning and differentiation, thinking about your value proposition, is to create equity in the company and increase its value. And you can see that Apple, and Google, and Microsoft have been good at that from at least 2015 to 2021. And that's what all companies, marketers should aim for. So with that said, that wraps up this chapter, and I will see you back on the internet. Stay safe.